Yesterday, Polish news agency Niezależne.pl reported on 16 balloons which appeared from across the eastern border, violating Polish airspace. The border guard headquarters and the police distanced themselves from this information, calling it fake news. Shockingly, a few hours ago, we received confirmation that the incident did indeed happen. This is not the first time that balloons from Belarus have entered Poland. The government remains silent, and the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Administration provides Polish citizens with only fragmentary information. Meanwhile, the balloons are already reaching the centre of Białystok. 16 balloons over Poland came from across the eastern border on Saturday night, Monday morning. The information provided by the Niezależne.pl portal was confirmed by the border guard.
W nocy w niedzielę doszło do przekroczenia polskiej granicy przez balony meteorologiczne. Obecnie trwają czynności zmierzające do tej ujawnienia sprawców tych przelotów. Szacunkowa wartość towarów ujawnionych to jest około 100 000 złotych.
Yesterday, after the information was published, the border guard officially denied it, calling it fake news and asking that it not be reproduced. On Sunday, no objects crossed the Polish border. Such an incident took place on Friday night, which we reported accurately. The border guard and the police are monitoring the situation at the border on a continuing basis and remain in constant direct contact with the operational command of the armed forces. Please do not reproduce false information. It is worth noting that the author of the text obtained confirmation of this information from the Podlasie Border Guard unit prior to publication. We received information that there were balloons in the air, which is why we published the text. What is more, on Sunday evening, as on the two previous evenings, Friday and Saturday, planes again avoided the airspace over the Podlasie province. We also contacted the spokesperson for the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Administration, which oversees the border guard, regarding the balloons.
Proszę dzwonić w tej sprawie do Straży Granicznej, to jest po pierwsze. Po drugie, ze względów operacyjnych nie informujemy i nie potwierdzamy ilości balonów, które przekroczyły. Potwierdzamy informację, że przekroczyły strefę graniczną z piątku na sobotę, o czym pisaliśmy, czy tutaj Straż Graniczna, to potwierdzamy. Potwierdzamy to, że Policja i Straż Graniczna prowadzi działania. Natomiast nie potwierdzamy ze względów operacyjnych ilość balonów, które przekroczyły granicę.
And this is not the first case of this type. On Friday night, over 50 balloons flew into Poland. The police did not disclose the scale of the raid. Information was provided about two balloons, one in the very centre of Białystok, the second in the village of Wierzchowce, near Sokółka. The objects that violated the airspace were smuggling balloons. The services are securing the remains of the balloons along with illegal packages of cigarettes without excise duty after the approximate location was indicated by the Armed Forces Operational Command. Why is the information from official channels so chaotic? Let's remember that there is enormous political pressure. There is a fear that if information is released, politicians will later give a different version, as was the case with the great failure to inform the world about last September's drone attack on Poland. However, the most important politicians responsible for security, led by Prime Minister Donald Tusk, have drawn a veil of silence over the issue. This isn't the first time that news agencies like TV Republika and Niezależne are the first to obtain such information. This was the case, among others, on the night of December the 24th, when 60 objects invaded Poland from Belarus on Christmas Eve. If we look back and observe the operations that the Russians have carried out against Poland, each of them was characterized by an attempt to identify further elements of the Polish state security structure. Crucially, this is an operation against Poland under the guise of smuggling activities. This is a planned operation to determine the state of the Republic of Poland and its defence and protection systems. If anyone still believes that the mass entry of dozens of balloons with GPS devices from Belarus is about cigarette smuggling, then the problem is not a lack of information. It lies in a lack of basic understanding of modern warfare. Can balloons really be that dangerous? They are cheap, mass-produced and innocent in the media. They allow you to test radars, passive sensors, communication responses, and the time it takes to make a decision. In other words, to obtain information before the next potential moves. Such balloons should be immediately eliminated from Polish airspace. The question is whether those who currently govern and command the services are brave enough to implement these systems and issue such orders. The government has been more keen on suppressing information about these incidents than shooting down the balloons. The informational chaos surrounding these incidents leads to a chilling conclusion. War does not begin with missiles. War begins with checking whether the adversary is able to call a threat by its name. In this case, unfortunately, the government has failed the test. Unfortunately for Poland, this is not a very optimistic conclusion. Polish President Karol Nawrocki is strongly focused on the economy. Just before leaving for Davos for the World Economic Forum, he met representatives of Polish companies operating on global markets at the presidential palace. I will do everything to ensure that the Polish Golden Age is not just a piece of Polish history that we can read about. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the essence of our meeting today, to do everything we can to ensure that the Polish Golden Age continues and that Polish companies can develop on the global market. Polish entrepreneurs are conquering global markets, and the President has assured them that he will support them throughout his term of office by using his good contacts around the world. US President Donald Trump has invited Poland to the G20 summit, which will be held in Miami in December. The Americans are open to cooperation with Poland, not only in the field of security, but also in the economy. Over the next 5 years, especially in view of our participation in the G20, I would like to cooperate with Polish business, listen to the voice of Polish entrepreneurs, and pursue an active international policy in the field of economic diplomacy. I will have my first opportunity tomorrow. During the Economic Forum in Davos, Polish President Karol Nawrocki is flying to Switzerland to discuss the most important issues with world leaders. The President will take part in a panel discussion on European security entitled, "Can Europe Still Defend Itself?" He will discuss this topic with the Secretary General of NATO and the President of Finland, as well as other experts and business people. The President will meet the President of Israel, the President of Armenia, and the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, but will also take part in an event dedicated to the Three Seas Initiative, as one of the President's goals is to promote this initiative. On the agenda are security in the region, the war in Ukraine, the situation in the Middle East, but also major economic challenges important for Poland, Europe and the world. The issue of the coalition to remove ETS and block ETS2, then arranging or encouraging investors to build nuclear power plants in Poland, and the third, current issue, namely Mercosur. President Nawrocki will play an extraordinary role because he is treated as a responsible person in the world, while Donald Tusk is treated as a German puppet. Neither farmers nor entrepreneurs can count on the Prime Minister of the December 13th coalition. Obedient to orders from Berlin, the left Liberal Polish government is cancelling or limiting key Polish projects such as the Central Transportation Port and investments on the Oder River. Donald Tusk is handing over the Polish economy and Polish security to Germany. We are seeing a situation in which our government has simply ceded all its responsibilities to the European Union. Whether it is the issue of Mercosur or the issue of peace in Ukraine, we are not there. No one from the government is talking about it, and Germany is dealing with all of this on our behalf. That is why the presence of President Karol Nawrocki in Davos as the representative of the real Polish authority is so important. The presence of the Polish president in Davos will also be an opportunity to promote our region, especially strategically located Poland, without which many supply chains cannot be built. Poland should be promoted as the main hub for the reconstruction of Ukraine, and we should present the Three Seas Initiative as the most promising direction for global capital. There will be a lot going on in Davos. For example, there may be groundbreaking decisions on Ukraine. Donald Trump is set to launch a special economic package, and Karol Nawrocki's presence is crucial. The Polish president and the American leader will meet during a special session. Nawrocki will also talk to the president of the World Bank. A speech on the Three Seas Initiative is also planned. President Karol Nawrocki is striving for Poland to participate in the debate among countries that are developing very well economically. He is attending the summit in in Davos. He is going to the G20 meeting, and at the same time, Donald Tusk is leading the Polish economy into a very bad financial situation. More mass layoffs, rising unemployment, debt, 270 billion in the 2026 budget. I hope that Karol Nawrocki's efforts will stop Donald Tusk from further actions that are degenerating the Polish economy. Karol Nawrocki's active presence in Davos can only benefit the Polish economy and Polish entrepreneurs, because the president puts Poland's interests first.
The sound of crushed steel and the screams of the injured just before 8 p.m. in Ademuz in southern Spain. One of the most serious train disasters in recent years occurred. Two high-speed trains traveling on the same section of track collided. The rear of one of the trains derailed and collided with the train coming from the opposite direction. Several carriages were completely destroyed. Some were in good condition, others were in very serious condition. They were lying right next to us. We saw them dying and couldn't do anything. Rescuers spent hours saving passengers trapped in the wreckage. Access for ambulances was very difficult. It is a narrow, one-way road. It was difficult to coordinate the arrival and departure of ambulances and buses. Some of the injured had to walk along the tracks because there was no road leading directly to the train. Hundreds of rescuers, firefighters, medical teams, and the military were deployed to the scene. The injured were transported to hospitals throughout the region, including by helicopter. Medical facilities went into emergency mode, and the authorities appealed to residents to donate blood. They were human remains. They were no longer human beings. We found hands. My husband saw a dead child in the middle of the carriage. He didn't want to see it, but he stumbled upon the child's body. There was also another child who was calling for his mother, looking for her. Some passengers got out of the carriages on their own. Others needed immediate help. I was on this side and suddenly felt the train lift up. I knew this wasn't normal. I travel a lot by train. I looked at my sister and that's the last thing I remember. Then it was dark and all I could hear were screams. People who were unharmed broke the windows and pulled me out. I was covered in blood. The Spanish government has declared 3 days of national mourning. Rail traffic between Madrid and Andalusia has been suspended. Representatives of the central and regional authorities have arrived at the scene. This accident is extremely strange. It happened on a straight section of track. All the railway experts who were at the scene today and whom we consulted are very surprised by this incident. At this stage, it is extremely difficult to explain. Investigators are looking into several hypotheses. According to preliminary findings, a rail joint may have been damaged, causing one of the trains to derail. This section of the route had recently been modernized, which raises questions about the condition of the infrastructure and safety procedures. We are deeply moved by the tragic accident in Ademuz, which has claimed so many lives. The rescue operation is still ongoing. Since yesterday, we have been in constant contact with the Prime Minister and regional authorities to obtain as much information as possible. There is also unofficial speculation about the possible involvement of third parties, but investigators emphasize that it is far too early to draw such conclusions. This is a day of mourning for all of Spain. Our thoughts today are first and foremost with the victims of this tragedy and their families. We want to convey our support, solidarity, and sympathy to them. Several hundred passengers may have been traveling on both trains. The identification of victims is ongoing, and families from across the country are reporting to information points in search of their loved ones. This is the most serious train disaster in Spain in years, and the first such tragic accident on the high-speed rail network in over a decade.
These are images of a Boeing 747 belonging to the Polish charter airline Enter Air. However, this time the plane was not carrying Poles going on vacation, but 15 German soldiers who had arrived in Greenland a few days earlier on a reconnaissance mission. It turns out that the Bundeswehr was unable to transport its own troops. All this at a time of what is supposedly one of the most serious crises in NATO's history. We are investing in submarines, frigates, and maritime patrol aircraft as part of our maritime security partnerships in the North Atlantic. Yesterday, at Denmark's invitation, we sent a research team to Greenland. Together with our NATO allies, we strongly support Greenland and Denmark. The mission was intended to demonstrate Europe's commitment to Greenland's security. However, not everyone in Europe took it as seriously as Germany would have liked. I can't understand it. Imagine 15 Italians, 15 French, and 15 Germans in Greenland. It almost sounds like the setup for a joke. If it was a joke, Donald Trump does not share the German sense of humor. He announced that all countries involved in the military mission in Greenland will be subject to new tariffs. Starting on February 1st, 2026, all of the above-mentioned countries, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and Finland will be charged a 10% tariff on all goods shipped to the United States of America. From June 1st, 2026, the tariff will be increased to 25%. This tariff will be due and payable until such time as a deal is reached on the complete and total purchase of Greenland. Representatives of Poland's pro-EU government jumped at the opportunity to attack Donald Trump.
I hope someone will explain to him that we are a customs union and you can only put tariffs on the EU as a whole.
Shortly after the announcement of the new tariffs, European countries ended their 44-hour mission in Greenland and withdrew their troops. Germany, which aspires to be the guarantor of security in Europe, brought 15 of its soldiers back home on a private flight, with a stopover in Copenhagen. Today, in Europe and the EU, the Bundeswehr does not play any role that could lead to helping secure another country. Over many years, they have brought about a situation where the German army today is in a state of decay. Back in 2023, Germany committed to deploying a permanent heavy armored brigade in Lithuania. To date, they have not fulfilled this promise. Now, however, Germany, side by side with France, is preparing for economic war with the continent's primary guarantor of security, the United States. Germany and France are in agreement. We will not allow ourselves to be blackmailed. Europe will give a clear, joint response. We are now preparing joint countermeasures with our European partners. We are preparing them in case President Trump maintains his threat of tariffs. We Europeans must remain united and coordinated in our response, and above all, ready to make full use of the European Union's instruments, trade agreements, tariffs, and anti-abuse measures. If these tariff threats are confirmed, we will analyze all options. However, Donald Trump's tweet alone was enough to cause the European stock markets to tumble. It is clear that a tariff war will not serve either the United States or Europe in the long run. I think everything will play out on Wednesday when Donald Trump is scheduled to appear in Davos. What will he say in his speech? Who will he talk to? And how will the situation be assessed afterwards? Until we know, the trend toward lower sales is likely to continue. The hope remains that talks between the European Union and Donald Trump will continue. The American president remains adamant. Almost every day, he emphasizes that for national security reasons, the United States needs full control over Greenland, which is already surrounded by Chinese and Russian ships. However, Denmark has no intention of selling the island. NATO has been telling Denmark for 20 years that you have to get the Russian threat away from Greenland. Unfortunately, Denmark has been unable to do anything about it. Now it is time, and it will be done. The ball is in the Europeans' court. European Council President Antonio Costa has decided to convene an extraordinary meeting of the Council in the coming days, the situation around Greenland.